Okay, and you guys can all see that, right? Okay, so throughout this 5-week program, you're basically going to be introduced to HTML and CSS, which are two languages that we use to write code, to write websites. So you're basically going to learn how to write your own website and how to make your own like fully customized website from scratch, like just starting with like a blank page. You're going to be able to go from that blank page to a page that contains like basically anything that you want. And through that, we're going to learn how to use HTML, which is like the coding for the actual website, and CSS, which is more like styling. So hello world. So we are the Society of Women Engineers. We're a group at UT Dallas focused on empowering women in STEM fields. And throughout this workshop series, we'll be covering some beginner web page coding skills to help you dip your toes into creative web development, which is going to be super fun. And you can find us at our website at sweetutd.com if you're interested. Yeah. So what we'll be covering today is basically we'll start off with what HTML is. It basically stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's how we'll be writing the code for our websites. Then we'll move into CSS, which is like the styling for the website. We'll also talk about the elements of a .html file, how to write your own style sheet, how to set up an environment which you can code in, and how to set up your files for the project so that everything is organized as you continue through the rest of the 4 weeks.
All right, so I'll start off with describing what HTML.
Yeah, I forgot to, I was going to show them, so this is what your final product is going to look like. So throughout this 5-week program, you're going to be making a clothing website. We called it Runway. This is just a demo. You can obviously customize it later on, but throughout the program, this is what you're going to be developing. So this is our front page where we have this title at the top that says Runway. We have this like navigation bar where you can click and go to other pages. Like you can click here and go to the home page. You can click here to go to like the women's site. And then you can scroll down, see all these pictures. And these are also clickable. So if you click here, you would see like all the available jeans. And if you keep scrolling down, we have this like footer tab that just has like information about the site. So yeah, that's going to be a really cool website and to teach you guys how to code it. So, okay, on to you, Stephanie.
All right, so I'll just start off with explaining what HTML is. So next slide, please. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's the standard markup language for creating web pages, and is typically used to describe the structure of a web page. It's composed of a variety of elements that instruct the browser, for example, Google Chrome, how to display the content, and it can label pieces of content like headings, paragraphs, and links. Next slide. So then we'll go into CSS, which pretty much comes in a pair with HTML. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and is used to format the layout of a web page efficiently. It's used to control the fonts, the colors, the size of text, the background colors, the positioning of elements, and more. It's very closely linked to HTML because it's essentially the language in which we style an HTML document and describes how HTML elements should be displayed.
Awesome. Thank you for that intro, Stephanie. So now we'll move on to kind of getting into the code a little bit and talking about the different elements of an HTML file and learning some of the basics.
Oh yeah, and just to clarify, you guys don't need to like have any coding like open right now. You're just gonna like watch us like walk through some examples. And then at like in a few minutes, we'll show you how to like set up your own environment.
Yeah, okay. So kind of looking at the basic structure. So when you first start coding, you open up a file and it's just blank. If anyone's coded before, I think you know that. So the first thing that you have to do is specify that you're writing an HTML file. So this doc type HTML specifies that the code will be an HTML file, and that's how, when you're rendering a code, that's how it'll be interpreted. And then you have to actually put everything into an HTML tag. And so HTML is basically written in tags, and that's the code that specifies like how the structure will be. And then the code in between the tags is what actually shows up on your like web page. And so you start with specifying it's an HTML file with the document type, and then you put all of your code within an HTML tag. So looking at this example on the right side, and you can see that the second line says HTML. And then we have a header. And so this head tag, basically that's like, that's specifying like the beginning of the HTML file and kind of sectioning off a place for the header. And then the next line shows, the next two lines basically show like how the HTML file is going to be set up. The char set says that it's going to be like, that is used to set whatever language. So typically you will see UTF-8, which specifies English. And then the next line is the name, which is the name and the content. And so that line is used to specify that we're going to be having like an HTML file that we'll be able to see on our computers when we render it, and that it will take up the entire screen. Then we have our title tag. And so in our title tag, we have written website title. So when you do open up this specific piece of code, you won't see like title, website title, you'll just see website title, and it'll be formatted as like the title. And you know, when you're in a browser and you have like your different tabs at the top, and it says like what the tab is, right? Like whether you're on Google Chrome or like YouTube or Instagram or something. So this title specifies that it'll say website title at that tab at the top. And then the next line, which is the link tag, that's going to be linking the style sheet. So like Stephanie mentioned, HTML and CSS come together. So HTML gives you the building blocks, and then your CSS sheet styles those building blocks. And so here we're linking the style sheet, and the specific name of the style sheet is style.css. And then we close the heading. So a lot of HTML elements are created with an opening and a closing tag. And then in between those tags, you have the content that's going to be displayed. So like the head has the opening head and then the closing head. And the difference between the opening and closing tag is just the slash in the beginning of it. And then the next portion is our body. So that's like the main portion of your HTML file. And then you pretty much put all of your different sections in there. And so in this example, we have a header 1. And then we say, this is my first HTML page. And then we close the header 1, close the body, and then we close the HTML file with the closing tag. And so if you were to show this specific example, what you'd see is on the tab at the top, it would say website title. And then on the screen also it would say website title. And then in a header 1, it would say, this is my first HTML page. And then the last extra little tag that we have here is the link tag, which I talked about a little bit. So that is the style sheet that we're linking. Okay, so these are like the different elements that you'll see that we'll be using throughout this workshop series. So the first one is a div. And so this is used as a container for other elements. So the div has an opening tag and then the closing tag. And basically this sections off a piece of your page for any content that you put inside. And divs are used to separate different sections of the page so that it's really organized and you're able to understand the code easier and also able to separate things out and organize them. You can also change the size of divs. So that's also really handy when you're trying to like maybe organize your content in a specific way. The next element is the nav, or that's the navigation bar. So like Neha showed you guys in the beginning, we had like the title and then we had the navigation bar. And so use the nav bar to specify a set of navigation links, like the home link, the women's link, the men's, and so on and so forth. So you usually see like at the top of any like website, you'll see like a menu. So that's the nav bar. The next is UL, which is an unordered list of items. And this is where you can just like list different items and they don't have to be in any specific order. And then there's a list which will make the items show up kind of like in a bulleted format, something so that it looks like a list instead of just like, you know, text and then an enter and then text and an enter. So it specifies the type of text. And then we have headings 1 through 6. So there's like H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. And so when you use these kinds of headings, it's just to specify like the importance of the text in a sense, right? So header 1 is the biggest type of text you'll see. And then header 6 is the smallest type of text as a heading. Of course, there's also just normal text. But these are the different types of headings. And as we increase the number, the importance of the heading gets lower. The next is a paragraph element. And so paragraph, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, right? So every time you use a paragraph element, it starts the text on a new line. And then it just like continues the paragraph until it's done. Then you have the image tag. And so with the image tag, there are specific attributes that you can add. So you can link to a specific image that maybe you find online or is in your project files. And then you can also choose the size, like the height and width of the image with the image tag. And the image tag is actually, it doesn't have the open and closing like we saw with the previous like HTML or body tags. The image tag is just one tag. There's no closing tag for it. Then we have the button tag. We also have an anchor tag that allows you to add links. So like, for example, when you open up a website and you click on something and it takes you to another site, that's usually made with an anchor tag and then a reference attribute to that new link. We also have an input tag. So users are able to type into a box and like give them their input. And then the break tag adds a break in the page. Basically like when you have a line break, it's the same thing and you have the break tag to do that. And then the last tag on this page, the last element that we'll be using in our example is the horizontal tag. And so this is, it just adds a horizontal line to your page. So you can also use those to divide up different sections. And so, yeah, these are like the elements that we'll be using. And this is just like kind of like briefly explaining them, but we will be using them in different examples and stuff. Okay. All right, so now we'll talk about attributes. So I know I mentioned that there are a lot of different tags. So these attributes specify a little bit more information about the tags and they're used in the HTML language. So the first type of attribute, which I mentioned briefly, when we use an anchor tag, the anchor tag is used for links, right? So we have to use an href attribute. And so that href attribute is going to be, it's shown here in this example on the right-hand side. So we have the A tag, href, and it goes to women's clothing.html. And then if you skip the next two lines, then you see the closing tag for the A. And so with that code, we see that we have an anchor tag, which is going to have a link. And then the href points to the women's clothing. And so whenever you see this, then you know like we'll be going to the women's clothing. And then the second line shows our image. And so like I mentioned, image doesn't have a closing tag. We only see one image and we don't see anything else, right? So we know that this image is not an open and close tag, it's just one tag. And then the class specifies what type of image it's going to be. So this image is in the top row. And class is special because it can be used in CSS. code. So we'll go into class a little bit later, but just know that it kind of gives the HTML element like an identity or something that you can use to style it a little bit later. Something really important for the image tag is the source attribute. And so here we see that the source attribute is equivalent to assets women.jpg, which is the image extension type. So this source is where you specify which image you're going to be using. And typically you need to have all the images that you'll be using within your project. So that way you can point to that image in your HTML file. Now we'll move on to the next line, which is the div. And so again, we can see there's a class attribute here and it's centered text. So that means that the text is going to be centered within this div or division, right? And then we have women written here in capital letters. We can see that women is written between the opening and closing of the div tags, which means out of all of this HTML code, the only code that's going to show up on your screen is women in all capital letters. And so looking at this example as a whole, right, we have a link that's opening up, then we have an image, then we have some text, and then we close the link. So what this means is that we have an image and it says women underneath or underneath the image, and the entire thing is clickable and it'll take you to a women's clothing page. Okay. Out of all these common attributes, we've looked at href, class, and source. And the last common attribute is ID. So ID and class are pretty similar, but the difference is that with class, HTML has predefined classes. So when we say in this div element centered text, we don't have to define centered text in our CSS code. Instead, HTML interprets what that means and centers the text itself. When we do ID, it's more on the coder to specify what that means. So in the CSS, we would use the ID to be able to define what that element's supposed to look like. So that's the difference between ID and class. And then a few extra attributes. We have placeholder, value, onClick, and type. So looking at this bottom example, we can see some of these attributes. So if we look at input, as you can see, this input doesn't have an open or closing tag either. So we have the input and we have different attributes. And so one of the attributes is placeholder. So if you ever log into a website or something, maybe you're trying to log in to your email. You'll see on the box, it'll say like, it'll be empty, like you haven't typed anything in it, but maybe it'll say, username or password or something. So that's the placeholder. So in this example, the placeholder is email address. So if the user is going to put in their input to the to the website, the box, they haven't typed anything in it, but the box will say email address as a placeholder. And it's used to prompt users so that way they know what to put into the box. And then we have these other types of attributes as well that we'll cover more in detail later. So kind of stepping through this example a little bit more, just to give you guys a full picture. So we have the div class, and we know that's an input div. And then we have another division. We have an input box, which doesn't have its closing tag, so input is just one tag. Then we have a break, so we have the input box, and then we move on to the next line. And then we have a horizontal line, and then we close up the div, and then we have a button here. And so the button has a few different attributes, and then the button itself, we can see that submit is the only white text. The button says submit on it, and then we close the button, and then we close the div again. And so out of all of this text, most of this is just interpreted behind the screen by HTML's like interpreter, and then all we'll see is an input box and then a button that says submit on it. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I'll dive a little bit deeper into writing a style sheet.
So do you mind if I like just like share a REPL and just like show a few examples of
Yeah,
like all the things we talked about? Okay. So let me see. I'm stuck in full screen. Hold on. Okay. So if I go over to tutorial, hold on. Okay. So you guys can all see this website called Replit. So Replit is basically like this website. You can just like type in HTML code on there. So you can just like make a project real quick. And this is like the boilerplate, like default code that just like comes with your project. Well, I modified it a little bit, but this is like the default code that comes with your project. And when you click run, it'll just show like hello world on the screen. So what we can do, like some of the tags that Maha talked about. So this is like the starting, I guess, code that says just like head. That's like the code that we can basically just ignore a lot of the time. And then inside this body tag, that's where all the interesting stuff happens. So if we look at this hello world, I guess, statement that's written there, we can do some things to it. So let's say we want to make it like bold, right? We can put like this tag around it. And then we can put maybe like a B here and then like a /E. And that will make it bold. Maybe something else we can do is we can make it like a heading. So if we want this hello world to be like a big title on our page or like very noticeable, we can make it like H1. And that'll be huge so that it's like really noticeable. Something else we can do is we can also try making like a list. So let's try making an unordered list. And an unordered list basically just means like the order of the elements isn't important. So like it won't say like 1, 2, 3, it'll just be like random elements, like a bulleted list. So we can do like a few like list tags. I'll just copy this. And each of these is gonna be an element in your list. So we could have like coffee, milk, tea. And when we click run, we're going to get a bullet point list, like of unordered elements, just like showing up on your screen. We can also try using some of the like other tags, like the P tag. That's just going to be like, this is a paragraph of random words. And basically this is going to have like no formatting. It's just going to be like a typical text that you see on the screen. So you could also have like an ordered list, in which case the things in your list will actually like have some kind of order. So you could have like OL instead of UL. And in that case, it'll be like 1, 2, 3, coffee, milk, tea. So these things actually have an order. So it could be like step 1, and then like step 2, step 3, etc. Yeah. So that's like just like a good demo of all the things that Maha showed you. And now she's going to talk about like some of the styling parts of it, and that'll be located in this like style.css sheet. And she's going to talk about some things that you can write in here. So let me stop sharing this. Go back to okay. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that demo, Neha. So there were a few questions that were asked in the chat. Dia asked if it's possible to change font, color, and etc. So those are things that are specified in the style sheet. And so I'll be talking a little bit about that now. Okay. Next slide, please. All right, so CSS is called Cascading Style Sheets. That's what it stands for. And so the way that a CSS document is set, or a CSS file is set up, it's set up with different selectors. And so you use these selectors to specify which kind of HTML elements you're going to be styling, and then you start writing up the code on how to style them within the curly braces. So we see here at the first common CSS selector. Correct me if I'm wrong, Neha and Stephanie, but the asterisk basically chooses all the HTML elements. So any type of code that you put within the curly braces following an asterisk, that means you're applying it to your entire HTML. Now keep in mind, certain attributes don't apply to certain type of elements, but as a whole, if it does apply to that element, it will be applied. The next is the dot class element. And so, like I mentioned before, for HTML attributes, class can be something that's predefined in HTML, or it can be something that you make up on your own. So it can be both. But if you use a predefined HTML element and then you start coding in these curly braces, you will be changing that HTML elements like predefined CSS, or you can just use a class that you make up and start coding in it. So when you want to code based on a type of class, then you use dot class and then put the code within the curly braces. And then similarly, you do the same thing with ID, but instead of a dot, you use a hashtag. So if your ID attribute is like equal to, if whatever it's equal to, you just put a hashtag and then you put that text and then you can start coding it. And then something cool that you can do is you can also choose like different classes or combine multiple classes into one and then start editing those at the same time. So if like two different types of classes have similar attributes, or you want them to have the same kind of aesthetic or like look, then you can change them all at once. And then maybe if they need to have maybe like the same font or something, then you can choose the classes of multiple different elements. And keep in mind, classes can be used for like multiple elements. So you can have one type of class and use it for more than one HTML element. And so when you want to edit like multiple classes and make them all maybe have the same font, then you can just list all of them like dot class, and then add your CSS code in the curly braces. And then we can also style by elements. And so if you have like H1 elements, then you can just write H1 and then start coding the CSS. Then you can also do multiple elements at a time, or you can do an element with a specific class. So all these different combinations give you a lot of options and variety and being able to choose exactly how you want different things to look. So if you have like two headers, right? You can do like H1, but then you only want specific H1 headers to have a certain font color or something. Then you do H1 and the class. That way you're targeting just that one specific header instead of all of the headers, or maybe some specific ones instead of all of them. So these are like the most common CSS selectors, but of course there's a lot of others. But yeah. So overall, like these selectors allow you to choose exactly what you want to style. Okay.
Yeah, so real quick, I have like a small example to show like how the dot class element can be used. So I'm gonna show the replit code again. Okay, so here you can see I added a small amount of code that says div class equals my class. So that's kind of just like wrapping these two things in like a container. It's like putting two things in a box, right? And I'm calling it my class. So here you have this like heading, it's in H4, which means it's a pretty small heading. And then you also have like some paragraph text, right? So I just called it my class. So on its own, that's not going to do anything special. So we can go over to style.css and actually make use of that. So we can go over here, and I made this thing, it's called my class, and we can give it like a color, right? So color maybe like aqua, or we could give it like any color that we want. We could give it like red or something, right? So when I click run, those two elements that I put in that box called my class or div, those are gonna show up red. So that's like a cool use of like these class thingies, is that you can like customize the exact elements that you want. So I'm not coloring everything red. I'm just selecting like these 4 elements to be colored red. So you can do like a lot of things with that. You could change like fonts, you could change sizes, you could change lots of other things. So even just like where these things are located on the screen, you can change those kinds of things too. So yeah. And now we'll go back to the slides.
Cool. Thank you, Neha, for that demo.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I think Stephanie has index. Oh, it's not right.
Yeah, okay, so this is just a list of the different CSS properties. So I won't go through every single one, but you can kind of read through the list, and typically these properties are pretty self-explanatory. So like you can decide like the width or height of different divs, you can change the margins or the padding. And so margin and padding, when you have like a div or like a container, you can add like space around it or take away space around it, and change like where it is on the page and things like that. You can also change like the color, the font, size, the thickness. There's a lot of different things that you can do with CSS in terms of how your HTML code looks on the screen. And so, yeah, this is just a few of them that we'll be using, but there are a lot of different CSS properties.
So there's a question in the chat. They asked, what does a div do? So a div is basically, it's like putting things into a container. You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of like categorizing things. That's how I would best describe it, I guess. So like you could say like, I want these 3 statements to be colored red, right? So you could just like put them all under one div. Or you could say, I want all of these things to appear in like on like the left side of the screen. So I'm going to put them all into one div. So it's like a container or like a box or however you want to think about it. It's a good way to organize things. The user won't necessarily see the container. It's not like a physical box per se, but it helps you. Yeah, you're right. It helps you like group your code together. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Good question. Okay.
Okay, now that we've gotten the intro stuff out of the way, let's just like talk about how we can get our environment set up so you can start the project in the next weeks. Next slide. So for this project, we'll be using Visual Studio Code, and I'll paste the download link in the chat. If your device can't handle the requirements of Visual Studio, or you're just having some difficulty setting it up, you can use the website that Neha was using, which is just Replit. And you just need a Google account to do that. So you can just click on the download link for your kind of system. For me, I used Windows, and again, like your device has to meet the basic requirements, but they're not too high. And then once the dialog box appears after clicking download, you can just do all the default paths. And if you have any questions, just leave it in the chat. Neha, do you want to continue or should we just wait until
Oh,
everyone
I guess if you do have Visual Studio installed, just like type yes in the chat or something.
Mhm.
Oh, awesome. What difference does button have with anchor? So button is just gonna be like a physical, like it's just gonna like look like a button, you know, that you can click on. But an anchor tag is what you would use for just like any sort of link. So like, I guess a button doesn't necessarily link to like some sort of website. All right,
Yeah.
wait, Maha, do you have a better explanation?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good explanation. So when you have a button, it's something that you can see and you can click on it, but it may not necessarily do something. So I think Abdul asked the next question. So an anchor gives you a hyperlink. So if you're using a button as a link to something else, then typically like that button is used maybe more for like styling purposes. So like if you have a hyperlink with just the anchor, it's just text and that's like a different color and underlined, and that's how a hyperlink is automatically styled by HTML. But if you put it in a button, then you can use the button element in your CSS code and change how the button looks. You could also change how the hyperlink tag looks in your CSS code, but then that would change like all the hyperlinks. So typically like when a button is when a button has an anchor to it, that means that it's kind of used for like more styling purposes. Yeah, I hope that answers the question. Yeah, you could give it a class tag and also style it. So the nice thing about HTML and CSS is it's really up to you and how you want to do it. As long as you like understand, you know, how everything's connected together. We're gonna be walking through like a certain way to do it just for like example purposes. But of course, like if you understand how it works, and that's hopefully our goal, then you'll be able to use like an anchor and a class tag, or you can use it in a button or however else you want to do it. So, yeah.
Okay, so if that's all for now, we can move on to the next part, which is basically setting up all of your like project folders. So basically we want to make sure that since this is like a 5-week program, we want to make sure that all of your folders are set up correctly and that everything is organized. So basically just like anywhere in your, I guess, file system, like go into like File Explorer or something like that. Maybe you could go into like your Documents folder or something. Just like create a folder called like Web Dev WS, and this will be like your main project folder. So let me just like demonstrate what I'm talking about. Okay. So if you just like go into like your File Explorer or something, and you just like go into maybe like your use like this thing, and you just like type make a folder. So you go to new and then you go to folder, but this only applies if you have like a Windows. If you don't have Windows, then it might be a bit different. So you just go here, you say make a folder. It could be in any directory. I'm just choosing this one. And we're just gonna call it like web dev tutorial, I guess. So is everyone able to do that? So yeah, just to say it again, you're gonna like right click, you're gonna click new, and then you're gonna click, sorry, I'm gonna click folder. And then that will create like a new folder and you'll be able to type in the name.
If you've created the folder, please say so in the chat.
Okay, awesome. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna open up VS Code. And if you are not able to use VS Code right now, just like watch for now. And I'll try to go through the directions for Replit. So right now we're gonna do the directions for VS Code. So open up VS Code. Might take a second. And then we're gonna go to this option called Open Folder. Okay, so we're gonna go to this option. We're gonna click Open Folder. And you're gonna navigate to wherever you created that folder. So, like mine was here, but yours might be in a different place. So you're gonna find that web dev tutorial folder that you just created, and you're gonna click Select. And that'll open up the folder. So if you can see this, basically we have VS Code here, and it says Web Dev Tutorial right here in this left corner under Explorer. So if you're able to get to that, okay, awesome. Okay, so then what we can do is we can click New File, and maybe just type in like index.html, sorry, dot. Yes, you can use Replit. I'll go through those directions in a few minutes. So you're gonna click, just to say that again, you're gonna click New File, and you're gonna type in index.html. And then you're gonna click Enter. And that should one. Wait, where'd it go? Okay. Or you can just like go over here and click New
Wait,
File.
I think Neha, can you select, or can you move your mouse over to Web Dev Tutorial on the left side?
Wait, what?
I think like when you want to add a new file to this specific folder, if you move your mouse over to Web Dev Tutorial on the left, there's a new file.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry. Click New File over here. Okay. My bad. Okay. So if you click New File here, that should add a new file inside your folder. Sorry, I like forgot. Anyway, so you'll just like click Enter, and that'll create a new file, like right there. And then from there, you can basically just search up like just type in like HTML boilerplate, and you should be able to find like just like basic HTML boilerplate code that you can use. So wait, let me find one that's like good. Okay, we can just like use this actually. I'll try to post this in the chat. So we can just like paste this in without all this. And this will be like your boilerplate. So I'll give you like a minute to do that. Oh, okay. So basically, it says web dev tutorial right here on the left side under Explorer. So you're gonna click this, like these like 4 buttons should pop up, and one of them says new file. The one on like the left side, it says new file. You just click new file, and then you just and then you just type in like the name of your file.
To make it an HTML file specifically, the way that Visual Studio Code works is when you add the new file, you add the extension as well, right? So the name of the file is index, and then the extension to make it an HTML file is .html. So when Neha typed in index, she added index.html, and that's what made it an HTML file.
No,
What's
okay,
cool with,
thank you, Ma.
yeah.
I read it wrong the first time.
What's cool with Visual Studio is you can actually like define different types of files right there. So if you wanted to make a text file, you could say text.txt. And so txt specifies that it's a text file. And you can do that with lots of other types of files, but right now we're just doing .html. So yeah.
Okay. And then so we can just like test if this is like working okay. And if it is working okay, we should see this text that says hello world. So we can just like go into our file directory, wherever like you made the folder web dev tutorial, just find that folder, click into it. And we're gonna see like index.html, and we're gonna open it with Google Chrome or Safari or whatever you want. So let's just say open it with Google Chrome, and it says hello world, so it's working. Did you guys understand that, or do you want me to walk through it again?
Could you walk through it one more time?
Okay. So basically we have this like boilerplate code here, right? So we want to test if it's working, and if it is working, it should say hello world on our screen. So we're gonna go into this file explorer, and we're gonna find our folder that says web dev tutorial, the folder that we just made. We're gonna find that folder, we're gonna click on it, and we have this file called index.html, and we're gonna like open it. So we're gonna right click, open with Google Chrome, if that's not already the default. So yeah, the boilerplate code, yeah, it's up there in the chat, but I think this person joined.
Yeah, I'm unable to copy it for some reason.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Oh, wait, that code is slightly wrong. Hold on. It's like missing something. Hold on, let me paste it again. Okay, this is the correct one. That's correct for sure. I think the HTML tag, this one at the bottom, is getting cut off. So make sure you have this. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
If you're able to see the heading and everything, please say hello world in the chat.
So if you're able to see this like in your browser window. Okay, if you're having issues, like you can ask a question too.
Yeah, if you need help, please say so.
You can't paste it.
Yeah, for some reason I can't either.
Okay, okay. Let me just like paste like a link maybe. Hold on.
Do we have a lot to cover, Neha, or maybe we could go through typing it out?
Last part. So after this, they just need to like get another folder in there and then they're done. So the good part is I think if you paste like one of the boilerplate codes from that link, it should work. So like the first one should work. The only thing I would add is like inside body. Okay, let me just like put directions in here.
Neha, do you think you could show us?
Oh, you can't see it? Sorry.
No, like we can see it, but like maybe you can copy the code and just like edit it so everyone can.
Okay. So something else you can do is you can like paste this code, this first one that you see. It's the first one on the website. So you can like copy this and then paste it over here. And I would just change one thing in this. I would put in H1, hello world. And then make sure to save it. Like go here and click save. And then you're going to do that same step. Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah, the nice thing about using the like Replit website is that this code already comes like for you. Like the starter code already comes for you. You don't have to do anything. But the nice thing about VS Code is that you can use any language with it. So there's a lot of like programming languages out there. You can use like pretty much any language with VS Code. So VS Code gives you more flexibility, but Replit is more easy to use, I guess. And by boilerplate, she means like this part. And make sure to add in this thing that says H1 hello world. Like,
Hey Neha, I know it showed up, but I think your H1 closing tag doesn't have the slash.
oh my god. I think it was there. Okay. And then I literally erased it.
If anyone's having trouble, please don't hesitate to ask in the chat.
I can't believe it still worked without a closing slash.
Yeah, I think if it wasn't closing, I think maybe it would just make everything an H1. So
Yeah. Everything on your page will be huge and bolded. So when you click index, yes, you should. Yes, so to run your code, let me walk through it again. You go to your file explorer and you find the place where you made this folder called web dev tutorial. You're going to find that folder, you're going to click on it. You're going to go into it basically, and you're going to find this index.html and you're going to just click on that and that should work. The top choice says view. Huh, what does that mean? Like when you right click? Okay.
So you can look at your HTML code in any of your favorite web browsers. We're using Google Chrome, but yeah.
Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're also going to we're gonna like click new file again, and we're going to make a new file called style.css and just click enter. Oh, it doesn't work.
Ishan, I'll try to help you in the chat.
Yeah, that's right, Abdul. Oh wait, can you ask if like Ishan posted if he added the H1? Like what exactly is not working?
Yeah, I'm asking him in the chat.
Okay. Just like make okay.
Ishan, if you want to send your HTML code, if you could just copy, paste, and send it in the chat, that would be helpful.
Okay, how about like if anyone's is not working, we can do like breakout rooms at the end, and then I'll just like finish for now. Does that sound okay? Or like,
Well, I think multiple students isn't working. Okay. So if it's not working for you, do you have your file set up within your folder in Visual Studio?
yeah, you also have to save it. So press Control S.
Yeah. Yeah, try saving it and then see if it works.
Because we're taking the boilerplate, like we're taking the code that we're copying, and then we're also adding this line like H1 hello world. So you're gonna have to save your code since we're modifying. Oh, okay, nice. Someone's just started working.
Yeah, I think it's working now.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed that. I forgot to mention to hit save. Okay, so okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to this folder called assets. I'm gonna open this. And I'll post the link for this in the chat.
Hey Neha, should
Yeah.
everyone download this or just the people who are using Visual Studio?
I think everyone should, right? Because it needs to be in the Redboy also.
Okay. So
Yeah.
everyone should download this folder. Okay, cool.
So to download this folder, you're just gonna go over to this arrow over here. Go down and you're gonna click download. Okay, awesome. So you're gonna click download, and if you're using Mac, you shouldn't really have an issue, but just like try to find the place where you downloaded it. But if you're using Windows, then when you downloaded it, it's gonna be in a zipped file. So what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to go over here to compressed folder tools. You're gonna click compressed folder tools, and then you're gonna click extract all. If you're using Windows. If you're on Mac, this doesn't apply to you. Yes, so you unzip it. So you click extract all. And it would be best if you can just click browse and then just extract it to the actually no, just like make a separate, just like keep it separate. Let's just call it assets. Well, I already have a folder called assets, just call it assets 1. Just call it assets. Mine is called assets 1, but just call it assets. And then click extract. Oh yeah, okay. So basically, if you're on Windows, so you're gonna find this folder that you just downloaded, and it's gonna be zipped. So you're gonna go over to compressed folder tools at the top, and you're gonna click extract all. And then here you're just gonna call it assets. And then you're gonna click extract. I've already done it, so I can't just repeat it, but like on my computer, but yeah.
Then the unzipped folder assets should
Okay,
show
if it's not zipped, then you don't have to worry about this. But if yours has this zipper symbol next to it instead of just yeah. Yes. So once you click extract, you're gonna take this folder, right? And you're gonna move it over to that web dev tutorial folder. So you can just drag it over there. So mine's over here. I'm just gonna drag it over there. So that is inside of here. So make sure that your assets folder is inside of that web dev tutorial folder that you just created. And then once you go into VS Code, it should be there. And this assets folder basically just contains all the pictures that you're going to be using. So when I showed you that demo runway website, which let me show you that again. Oops. That demo runway website has all these pictures on it. What we're doing is we're basically downloading a folder that contains all of these pictures, including the icons, the search bar, just any pictures that you see on this page. We're going to download all of these pictures. Even these logos, Facebook, Instagram, all these logos. So you should be able to, in your VS Code, you should see this folder called assets. I don't know why mine says it twice, but it should just say assets. Assets acquired. Yeah, and if you're using Replit, these steps are going to be much simpler, I think. The boilerplate code will already be there. So all you really need to do is make 2 files, and that's it. And then upload the assets folder, and you'll be done. It takes 2 minutes. So are you guys able to do that, or do you need me to walk you through it again? Or the file is not displayed because That shouldn't be happening. It should be supported. I don't think there's anything. It's just pictures. Did you go here? Did you go here and click download? Okay. Oh, did you forget to unzip it? I think if you forget to unzip it, that can happen. So you need to go over here to like downloads, and it probably says like has this like zip symbol next to it. You can't extract. Oh, maybe. That's interesting.
I might be wrong, but can you go into the compressed zip file and then like just copy and paste it into a new folder?
I think you can. I think,
Yeah, I
or
think
I
you
don't
should be
remember
able
if you have to download 7-zip. Oh no, 7-zip is just if you want to zip the file, but if you're unzipping it, just
Yeah, unzipping, you should be able to just click into the folder like that you downloaded and try to just like manually move it. I think it'll work.
yeah, you can also try that. Thanks.
Yeah, you can just try that, yeah.
Yeah, you should see
Yeah,
this
it should be
folder,
fine. Yeah.
and you can just like drag this folder
Mhm.
into like wherever web dev tutorial is. So, like mine is right here. I can just like drag it in here.
Mhm.
So. You probably, yeah, okay, good. Okay, it looks like it's working for people. Okay, awesome. So that's like basically all the steps that we're gonna go through today. That's a lot of progress. Next time we'll like talk about how you can start setting up the website. Now I'll pretty much do the same tutorial on Replit. So if you want to stay and watch that, you can. So I'm just gonna go over to Replit, and this should only take like 2 minutes to do. So basically on Replit, I'm just gonna go to like the home page. So if you already, so you should have an account on Replit. If you don't, then just like type in an email or sign up with Google. Like it should take like a minute. So yeah. So for those who are following along for Replit instructions, yeah, follow me now. So be sure to make an account on Replit. All you need is an email and a password. You don't even have to verify it. I mean, it'll yell at you to verify, but it's okay. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to this create option. We're gonna click the plus sign. And then just search up like HTML. I mean, for me, it's the first option, but you can just type in HTML, CSS, JS. This is the option that we want to select. So are we able to do that? Okay, so assuming we've done that, so we just click here, and then we'll click create. We'll give it a name. Don't just like don't listen to the default name. The default name is always weird. So we're gonna say web dev tutorial, and then just click create REPL. So it should look like this. And then you just click create REPL. Let us know if you're like lost or if you need us to repeat anything. Okay, cool. So you just click create REPL and then it will take you to that. No, if you already set it up on VS Code, you don't need to follow along. If you want to, you can. This is just like another alternative. So the nice thing about Replit, like I said, is that everything's already set up for you. So all this boilerplate is already there. If you click run, then hello world will just show up automatically. And part of the directions was to make a style.css in the index.html file, but these are already there for us. So Replit just kind of does a lot of work for us. So all we need to do is go over to add folder. No, we're going to go over to upload folder. So we're going to click these three dots, go over to upload folder, and we're going to upload the assets folder, wherever your assets folder was. Where is my? Okay, we're going to find the assets folder somehow, and we're going to upload it. Okay, and the assets folder should show up. So if you need me to walk through that again, just like ask. So basically you just like click the three dots, you click upload folder, and then you're gonna go into your files and you're gonna find the assets folder, wherever it is. It's probably in your downloads, but wherever it is, you're just gonna click on. Or it could also be in your web dev tutorial folder. Wherever you put the assets folder, you're just gonna click upload and it'll be here. And that's it, you're done. Like, that's all you need. Just make sure to remember the email and password you used so that you don't have to set this up again. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so if everyone is good with that, then I'll just go back to the slides and we're basically done with all the tutorial for today. Thanks for listening along if you're still here. And next time we'll just like continue on with that. So if you have any closing questions, just let us know. Otherwise, we'll just hand it off to the library to finish it off. Okay,
All
awesome.
right. Thank you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining today. And I would like to give special thanks to our presenters at SWE for this amazing 5-week program series. We appreciate you being here, and I'd like to share a few resources with you as we wrapped up today. For one, I'd like to quickly mention our STEAM kits. For more hands-on STEAM activities, the Plano Public Library offers STEAM kits for all ages. The STEAM kits include learning components for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math to support STEM-based learning. Our teen STEAM kits focus on technology and problem solving, and you can check out our kits like the Teen Kano Computer Kit, the Teen Little Bits Arduino Kit, and Teen Raspberry Pi 3 Kit. To see more STEAM kits, check out the Plano Public Library catalog. Plano Public Library offers 3D printing services at Davis, Harrington, and Parr, although Davis is currently closed. Use 3D design software programs like Tinkercad to design your own 3D model. Submit your design as an STL file on a USB flash drive and let Plano Public Library print your creation. For more information on how to submit your 3D design, pricing, and 3D printing classes, you can check out our Plano Public Library website. And one more is the LinkedIn Learning. Your Plano Public Library card grants you access to thousands of courses on LinkedIn Learning. You can expand your website development skills by checking out courses on website design and development. You can access LinkedIn Learning on the Plano Public Library's website under Research and Learn, but it should be noted that Frisco residents do not have access to this service, so just have to point that out. Okay. Well, be sure to stay up to date with the Plano Public Library by following our Facebook page and checking out our blog at planolibrarylearns.org. There you can find recordings of past programs and other materials about how to take advantage of everything the library system has to offer. Please complete our program survey, which should pop up following this program. We value your feedback. Thanks again for joining us today for STEAM Skills